NFL free agency, which officially got started just about an hour. We're here at 5:35 p.m. Eastern. At 4 o'clock was the official window. Yep. This kind of bothers me because they have the tampering period, which starts Monday at 9 a.m., which is why you have situations like we saw in one of the most wild stories that we've seen in the history of free agency, where one of the first deals that were signed was Max Crosby moved to the Ravens. They were going to give 2 first-round picks to the Raiders. And then the Raiders, they make this move. They go out and sign Tyler Linderbaum. They spend a ton of money because they had all this cap space. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, celebrate, what does this mean for the Ravens? What does it make them an instant contender? This is exactly what they need. Until the Raiders put out a statement last night that said, the Baltimore Ravens have backed out of our trade agreement with Max Crosby. We will have no further comment at this time. Now, there's a lot of speculation. I'm curious to know what you think about this. Because the Ravens, Max Crosby, remember last year, he was sat at the end of the season. Yes. He had a meniscus surgery. There was some contentious, he was out posting videos, playing basketball. He said, I want to play. They're not letting me play. Yep. Well, there was a real injury. The Ravens get him in there, and they have their medical teams look at him, and they say, thanks, but no thanks. What do you think? What do you think really transpired?
I mean,
I know what happened.
I'm pretty certain, because if you follow the timeline, you know that today there was a disgruntled pass rusher out of Cincinnati.
Correct.
Trey Hendrickson, who's been for a long time trying to work his way either into a long-term deal with Cincinnati or out of Cincinnati totally. And I feel like, in hindsight, it almost appears like the Ravens thought they had a shot at him. It was real. It was a real thing. And they knew we could either sign Trey Hendrickson and keep our 2 firsts.
Yes.
Or we can, keep this trade, put it through, and we can lose 2 1s for Max Crosby. And I think they got buyer's remorse, got some cold feet, and I think they bailed on the whole thing, and they're putting it on the
medical
injury.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly what happened. Yeah. I put it like, if you went out and you bought a really nice car and you spent $100,000 on it, and then all of a sudden maybe you were talking to another salesman and he says, hey, I've got the same car. Maybe it's a different color, different rims, similar mileage, but I'll give it to you for, you paid $100. I'll give it to you for $75. Yep. What would you do? If you had the opportunity to return that car and go get the other one, I think you would do this 10 times out of 10. I think it was ruthless by the Ravens, right? But I think it was also incredibly smart. Right. Like, I think I would have done the same thing. The other thing that was playing out is Trey Hendrickson. Everybody thought he was going to sign right away. They thought, he's going to be off the board, and he was going to get some big deal with whatever team was going to come in and give him what he was looking for, which everybody thought was $30-35 million a year, which is what some of the other top pass rushers went. So as he's not getting signed, I'm sure his representation reached out to Baltimore and said, hey, we're not getting the money that we're looking for. What would you be interested in? And the 2 first-round picks were already something that a lot of people were like, man, that's huge, expensive for the Ravens to give up. So the Ravens are like, hey, we've got an excuse. We've got a reason. We've got a cheaper option. We're going to take it. I do wonder, because there's a lot of front offices that I think are taking notice of this, how much it damages Eric DeCosta, the general manager for the Ravens, moving forward in years, moving down the road, if teams are way more skeptical and cautious of doing any deals with the Ravens.
Well, that's the craziest part of the whole thing, is like almost like that domino effect that comes from everything. And you said it earlier beautifully, where all these moves have been made around the league. And what happens now when you got to return Max Crosby and that money? Yeah. I don't even know what happens to these deals if you don't. I think they have the cap space.
Well, that's why they spent a ton, because they had all the money to spend. So I think NFL teams always figure out how to work around the cap. Of course. You always hear that. Right. And they actually had to meet the floor, so they had to spend a lot of money, but they went out and spent a ton. Yeah. I think what I'm curious to know is Max Crosby, where is his mental state right now? Yeah. Because he was, thinking he was moving on. It was contentious at the end of his tenure. And I think everybody was probably like, all right, good. I'm out of here. I don't have to deal with it anymore. The Raiders were celebrating, thinking, we got 2 first-round picks. We get that contract off the books. I wonder how it's going to be. I wonder if because now the Raiders, everyone knows that the Raiders are in business for Max Crosby, but the Raiders are looking at it saying, we're not taking anything less. And then I don't think there's a market for Max Crosby at 2 first-round picks. So I'm sure some teams are kicking the tires saying, maybe we'll give you 1 first-round pick. I just wonder where this goes from here for the Raiders and Max Crosby. Like, is he stuck there? Are they just going to eat it and say, all right, let's try to mend the fences? This is where it's just fascinating.
So I know the head coach is different than it was last year when they made the decision to not dress him for the last 2, and that probably pissed him off. Like, it would get me mad. You know what I mean? But is the front office the same as it was prior? Because you got to think, like, if he made me completely aware that he's open to moving, he wants to move, he's comfortable moving, and I move him, then it's not a big shock to my system. If these are the same guys who he had last year and you got to bring them back to them where they've already got that icy relationship, I don't know if it goes well. I feel like if you bring him back into the fold and he's like, all right, these are new guys, they traded me when I asked to be traded, maybe we can find a common ground here and move forward. Is the front office?
It says here that the general manager was hired in early 2025. So
okay, so it's the same guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
that's a little bit of bad blood right there.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, it's not good.
No, that's not
and
good.
you wonder what dynamic, what does that unfold inside the locker room? Like, what does that mean?
I think Max Crosby would be a professional about it because he's grown like leaps and bounds as like a man, it seems like, since he's gotten into the league. I know he's gotten sober. He's become a much better player. He seems like he's a leader in that locker room. So I'm sure he'll do his job. The problem is he leaves the Raiders in a bad position now because once a guy wants to be traded and he's got bad blood, you lose your leverage, right? And I think I'd love to go back to the DaCosta thing, man. That is a huge deal. Going down, I've heard, that's what I've been hearing, like front offices now are skiddish to make moves with this guy.
Absolutely.
And so as great as it is that you might have saved that $25,000 on your sports car on the back end, man, you might be paying for it for a while now.
Right. You've done some reputational damage.
Right.
And so I think teams are going to be way more cautious, but all you need is one suitor in a trade. You can talk to them. And I think they'll be much more cautious in some of the parameters, to make sure you're a little bit more protected if you're going to do a deal with the Ravens.
But the thing about the Ravens is they've had such a long, rich, net. They've always been a real respected franchise the way they've done things there. And this is kind of like one of the first few moves under this new regime. And that's going to be tough.
It is. It's going to be real tough. The running back market has been pretty active, including the Super Bowl MVP, Kenneth Walker, going to the Chiefs. This is a great get for Patrick Mahomes coming off an ACL. Like, that has been the one thing they have lacked really throughout the whole tenure has been a lead back, a guy that can really take some of that load and shoulder the workload. Kenneth Walker fits that. Are you surprised that the Seahawks let him out, though?
No, I mean, he was splitting carries with Zach Charbonnet until he got hurt 2 weeks before. I think the best thing that ever happened to Kenneth Walker was that injury because he showed that he could be that workhorse back. He's shown that he can do it on multiple different ways. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He can run it. He had a monster game in front of everybody. We're going to talk, I think, a little later about our top 3 free agents.
Yep.
Dude, this is my biggest one.
Yeah.
This is my biggest one, man. This is the best he's had. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have had since I think maybe rookie or second year Kareem Hunt before he went through that whole nonsense with the domestic violence, right?
Yeah.
This is a complete back. This is gonna, like you said, man, it's gonna lighten the load on Pat. It's something he's never had. They shuffle, and that's one thing that they must change over there if they're gonna get back to where they were, and that's on Brett Veach. They just shuffle guys in. I mean, you see it every year. They cut Juju Smith-Schuster, and by week 7, he's back in the fold, and he's playing huge time. They did the same thing with McCole Hardman. They unloaded him, and they just bring him back in. You get this guy, Mahomes. He is a once in a, maybe a twice or 3 times in a lifetime type talent. And for you to try to play around like that, where you're just give this guy consistency. He had Tyreek Hill for a bunch of years, and he thrived.
Yeah.
He's had Trav for a bunch of years, and he's thrived. Get this guy some players in here. He's 30 years old. He's not 36 years old. You know what I mean? So he's got a second run in him if you do the right thing by him. I think this is the first step, and it's a good one.
Travis Kelce also agreed to a 1-year deal coming back, which I think tells you that Mahomes' health is probably on track for him to return. I think that's big because there was a lot of speculation. He's looked a little tired, exhausted, just you wonder where he is mentally. Good to see him come back. I hate seeing guys retire. I want to see him keep playing as long as they can.
Yeah.
He's still Patrick Mahomes' favorite target.
And I want to get your thoughts on that because you watch it, and you watch football film different than a lot of us because you're a former quarterback. He finished second in the league to that Trey McBride in most things, right?
Yep.
Did you see like a major, obviously he's not, he looked like he was a little out of shape for his standards, but
kind of early in the season.
Right. And then he kind of worked into form. But his offseason, if you remember, was crazy.
Right.
Do you
he's
think
running around the globe chasing after Taylor Swift, which I don't knock him for it.
Right.
I do wonder if he's and they've been so spoiled with success.
Yeah.
now that they got a taste of what it's like to miss the playoffs, and you have, because it was rough enough to lose in the Super Bowl to the Eagles, and that was an ugly loss, and they looked dejected, but you still made the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, you're not as hungry. Now, when you miss the playoffs, I think that could create a hungrier Travis Kelce back to the table. It's a 1-year deal. So I think you're pushing it a little bit harder this offseason. And as far as you asked about the film, I did think he looked a little bit slower, but he has such a knack, and they have such a good feel for each other. Mahomes and Kelce, it's still there, that chemistry that you have, where they figure out how to get open. He still has the bigger body and the long arms and the catch radius that any quarterback would love throwing to, including Patrick Mahomes, where I think he'll come back and be probably better than last season, which is still better than a lot of tight ends across the league.
And that's where I think the key is, right? I don't think his game was ever predicated on like being an absurd athlete. He's not Vernon Davis. He's not, he's not one of those guys who's stretching the field and he's beating guys, deep. I think he's built his game on being able to see the field the same as his quarterback. He's going to run a lot of option routes. He's going to run a lot of short stuff. He's pretty good with the yak. So, yeah, man, I think they've really exaggerated the fall off.
So we saw the Chiefs make a big move for a running back. We also saw the Saints make a big move for Travis Etienne from Jacksonville, paying him a pretty handsome amount. What I thought was interesting about these two teams specifically taking running backs was most of the mock drafts coming into free agency had Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame going either to the Saints at 8 or the Chiefs at 9.
Yeah.
And I think what you're going to see happen is Jeremiah Love go top 5. I think they both came to the realization, and they probably loved him, but they realized, wow, he's not going to drop to us. I think Tennessee picks at 4. I think that could be, it wouldn't surprise me if he goes top 3 even. But Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. And then after that, there is a pretty big drop for the next running back.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the running back market has been so hot, because of Notre Dame's Jeremiah Love coming out. It's going to be a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. I think going into the combine, he was your consensus number 1. He ran a 4.38, if I'm not mistaken. So he just solidified that spot. And I think a lot of people coming out of the combine aren't just saying best running back. I think a lot of people think best player.
Yeah.
So I think
he's a freak.
Freak.
He's awesome.
I think clear as day, that's what it was. I think the front offices on both teams said, we ain't got a shot, so we got to go ahead and fill this hole now.
So the Jets, they found their quarterback. They're going to run it back with Geno Smith, who started his career with the Jets, didn't go great. He's been a journeyman. Then he kind of has this resurgence with Seattle.
Yeah. Kind
of came off the rails with the Raiders last season, didn't have great protection. How are we feeling? Come on. What are we doing? Playoff run?
So here's the problem. Here's the problem. I love the Geno Smith story. I love the redemption story. I think he's become a better man. If you recall why you remember what the big downfall was from him in the Jets? He got his jaw caved in by like a journeyman practice squad linebacker. He initially agreed to appear at this guy's camp that he does for Utes. The guy put $500 into a plane ticket. Geno no-showed. He refused to give the $500 back, and he got his jaw caved in. So that was the old Geno Smith. He seems like he's come a really long way, which is what you love to see. I think that's incredible. What I think the Jets just did is I think they put themselves in a position to win 6 games. And what that does is they leaves them with like the 8 pick or the 9 pick or the 10 pick, where you find yourself right out of that little sweet spot to get one of the 1, 2, or 3 that might change your franchise. But I mean, I don't even know. At this point, I stopped. I don't know.
So, you know what I think they did? I think they've been so tired of getting completely erratic quarterback play. They want to have somebody where you know what you're going to get. And I do think Geno provides a floor that you know. And I think he's somebody who has absolutely grown up into being one of the more respected professionals. Like, I think he knows how to approach the game in a young locker room. I think Aaron Glenn knows the value that a veteran quarterback who gets it, right? He knows how to work. He's had the flashes. So you know you can get that upside if you provide him. If Breece Hall is able to run the football, if the defense can get some stops, you can get some rapport with some of the weapons they've got on the outside. I think it gives them a floor where you feel like a fighting chance, where the quarterback play was so suspect the last few years, whether Aaron Rodgers getting hurt, whether it was taking a flyer on Justin Fields, that didn't work. I think they want to have somebody steady the ship. I think that's exactly what Geno brings in.
Well, here's where I think the biggest problem is for the Jets. I think it's that the coaching staff and the front office timelines don't match up.
Right.
I think Aaron Glenn knows I need to win this year.
Yeah.
I think the front office is saying we don't want to win this year.
Right.
So Aaron Glenn is going about it with the approach that I have to win games or I'm going to lose my job. And the front office, this is what I want to ask you. you're in that Jets front office. Nobody knows what you're saying. It's a soundproof room. There's no mics, and you're the general manager, and you're talking to the assistant. What's the year? Like, explain what you want this year to be if you're the Jets.
And I'm the general manager.
I'm the GM. I'm here. I'm Darren Muji.
Really
I'm going to be here for like 3 years. I know that.
See, this is really hard for me because I think the smart thing to do is probably lose as many games as possible.
Right.
You've got a couple guys in Arch Manning, in Dante Moore.
Right.
The quarterback class is pretty rich, so you want to position yourself for that class. But the competitor in me says I want to win. Like and we've seen teams surprise. Like we've seen worst to first every single year. There's a team that comes out of nowhere. The competitor in me says like, that's why it's hard for me. I can't even put myself in the position to do the right thing, which is probably tank.
Is there any world where you see Geno Smith, though, being the next generation, like being the next
not a generational, but can give you 25-10. You know, which,
so over the next 3 years,
crazy.
You think that they can,
or just this year to kind of give you a baseline, and then you figure out the quarterback. Maybe you can trade, you can make some moves in the draft, go up and get somebody. Maybe you get one of the second-tier guys who maybe come in the late end of the first round of that class, because if there's 4, 5, or 6 good quarterbacks, we saw 6 quarterbacks drafted not that long ago.
That's true.
They're saying it's that good a class, and here's the thing that makes me nervous about tanking. We hear this every single year. Wait till you see next year's quarterback class. Look at all these guys who are going to be surefire franchise quarterbacks. It doesn't always pan out. The season unfolds, guys underwhelm, they don't reach the potential, or you find out, oh, that guy was just a great player with on a great team with exceptional talent around him. When he gets to the NFL, J.J. McCarthy, perfect example.
Good call.
He goes to the Vikings. They're like, wait a second, where was the player that played at Michigan? Well, guess what? At Michigan, he just had to be a game manager and just make good decisions, and that's not going to cut it at the NFL, and all of a sudden, they have to move on. Anthony Richardson, another one, that had all the physical gifts in the world, and yet he gets in the NFL, can't stay healthy. You hear rumors about the work ethic. He doesn't get what it takes. He's still young and mature. All those guys were top 10 picks that did not pan out. So as much as people say tanking is the right thing, it would be very nerve-wracking to me without a guaranteed solution. And even Arch Manning, who I like, and I think he should be the number 1 overall pick, there's no guarantee that he's just going to be Peyton or Eli.
100%.
You know, so that's what makes me nervous from the tanking perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets have the problem is that they've not even been able to tank at the highest level. They always seem to tank to pick 3 or tank to pick 2 because they'll. And this is an NFL thing in general. The players understand we're not tanking. The players that are out there are trying and giving it everything they have until the end. And they always manage to squeak out like a week 14 win or a week 15 win that ends up killing them late, and it winds up getting them right out. It happened with Trevor Lawrence. They wound up grabbing Zach Wilson. It's happened again this year where Mendoza seems like he's going to be the consensus pick. And I think if you have to pick the safest guy that you believe, if I had to put a gun to your head and say, who's the franchise quarterback from this draft? After Mendoza, it's nobody, right?
Right. Yeah, it's pretty weak.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Another quarterback got a deal today. All right, I don't know if you know where I'm going. You talk about Anthony Richardson. You talk about guys who are injured.
Yep.
Talk about guys who Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
You familiar with the Daniel Jones deal?
I am.
Came in a couple hours ago. 2 years for 88, and it can be up to 100.
And as low as 50, right? That's like the guaranteed is 50, I think.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, and here's the thing: like the Colts could have been in market for Kyler Murray at $1.3 million.
Okay,
but here's what I think the Colts did. I think they went with the familiar. Like Kyler Murray is a wild card. He's uber talented. He's more physically gifted than Daniel Jones. He could be a playmaker, but Daniel Jones was playing at MVP level.
Sure was.
Sometimes injuries in the NFL can come at exactly the right time. Because when Daniel Jones got hurt, there was starting to be a little bit of cracks like in the foundation of Daniel Jones. And I was one who was pretty critical because I've seen this with the Giants.
Yeah.
When Saquon was running the ball and they were playing great defense, he'll win some games.
Yeah.
But last year against the Steelers, all of a sudden they start pressuring him. It doesn't look quite as good. And he's playing against some of those better teams, but he gets hurt. So all we really remember is the best version of Daniel Jones. So Andy's coming back off this major injury.
Yeah.
I'm very suspicious if this is going to work for the Colts because I feel like I've seen this story before with the Giants.
It's funny, man. I've said to myself when that injury happened, like, if I'm Daniel Jones, that might not have been the worst thing that's ever happened to me, because it wasn't Achilles, it wasn't a patella tendon, it was an ACL, which sucks, but we do see them all the time now, and guys come back from them. And, yeah, man, that's a crazy one to me. 2 years for 88. And
It's a
another
lot.
the Colts seem to be in the habit of handing out a lot of money. Just yesterday,
Yep.
the highest, is it AAV? AAV year ever?
I believe
the
so.
Colts signed Alec Pierce to a 4-year, $116 million deal. If you guys need a second to Google him, he's very good.
Yes.
He's very, very good. But $116 million for Alec
He's not
Pierce.
a one. You know,
not a
like
one.
he's not a one.
No,
That's,
he's not.
But here's where in this takes
He's a one on a bad team.
right.
Yeah.
This is where it always takes a little bit of a shock to the system. The NFL salary cap has gone up again.
Okay.
It's over 300 million, isn't it? Like they have
Yeah.
to spend some of this money. I don't think Alex Pierce's record-setting contract will stand for long. He's just the latest to get it.
True. Timing.
So I don't want to hate on him. I think he's really good. And I think this kind of falls in line without talking about Daniel Jones. Colts didn't want to lose him. You know,
Right.
I don't know if the market would have been as robust as what they paid him, but they see him every day. They know his work ethic. They
Yeah.
know the accountability, like he's going to deliver.
Yeah.
He's been there for him. So I think it was really expensive, but I think it's those two things. There's way more money to spend, and he's somebody that they trust.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. I'm right there with you. I hate
They're
that
spending a lot.
it sucks that we have to almost like down. It almost seems like we're being disrespectful of Alec Pierce, who's a very good player, but it just seems like for that number, that's a big get.